You know, over the years, Oshkosh has been a good place to score good deals on used avionics. This year may be challenging, and ahead of the show, I sat down with Avionics pro Chase Larabee. He's a founder of Seattle-based Avionics Source, who, no surprise, reports that inventories are low, prices are high, and some deals can be downright risky. So here's some take it to the bank advice if you're venturing in the used avionics market.
We're still facing a lot of the same capacity constraints on the OEM level, and that reduces the ultimate throughput of new installations and the removal of used products, allowing these consumers looking for off-price secondhand goods to be able to be acquired and installed in their airplanes. So we definitely can see that there are less transactions happening. There are less new listings on eBay, Barnstormers, aircraft forums like Beach Talk, Twin Cessna. We have no shortage of demand. Where we've reached this stalemate is there's a lack of supply. And where do we go from here? I myself, experienced or not, am really unsure, because you have multinational corporations that are publicly traded, being Garmin, that are reporting we have a serious supply constraint, and that is going to materially impact our business in this calendar year. It was something that impacted them at the tail end of last year.
You know, there are buyers that are looking to source avionics at rock bottom prices. Maybe they got a very basic airplane. They're trying to solve a problem where the airplane needs to be upgraded, but they want to do it as cheaply as possible. Then you've got the other buyer that wants top shelf equipment, but they don't want to pay new prices. But now we've got another buyer, can't source new equipment. Maybe the airplane is in the shop, or they're trying to schedule a new installation, but they can't get new equipment because of the choked supply chain. So now they're trying to source the equipment in the used market. Do I have that right? Backstop me. Am I sort of thinking in the right direction there?
No, that's correct. But ultimately, what happens is that you have those two customers blended into are blended into one. And what I mean by that is the new buyer is turning to their local dealer and seeing that there's no inventory. The used buyer is going to these secondhand markets thinking that they'll be able to buy and acquire this removed equipment, and it does not exist. And so we're still seeing high prices on a variety of products from a multitude of brands. And I just ultimately don't see that changing until we see a massive supply chain, catch up. I do not think that we're going to see an increase in capacity in the avionics industry when we have the Toyota, Mercedes, and GM of the world still struggling with supply chain constraints on semiconductors and other popular products. I think what's important to highlight for consumers that are uneducated or unsure where these products are is that many of the components down to the board level of these electronics, they're industry agnostic. And that what that means is that the components are coming from and they're getting used in several industries. It could be, the same chips used in server architecture or hosting devices, automobiles. There's so many sectors that are gobbling up these components that it's leaving us that are hoping for the best for this industry and wanting to economically, move forward. We're just struggling to make that materialize.
Typically, where does this stuff come from?
Yeah. So
and how has it changed in the current world of a choked supply chain?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So really, it's a three-prong approach, and specifically, you have avionics shops who are removing equipment and they are buying the trade-ins and they are taking that to market, or they are keeping it for new installations locally. That could be removing a quality audio panel as someone goes to a remote-based product. The next customer comes along and buys that off the shelf, they install it. And that's a great way for shops to keep inventory and ensure that they can have labor projects in the future. The second prong of that is that they will take that inventory and sell to wholesalers or B2B buyers like Avionics Source and others. And the third is the customer will go ahead and keep all the products removed. They themselves will go to eBay and Beach Talk, et cetera, and they will list the products themselves. So nothing has changed there. There's no way to really modernize that or flip it on its head. But all we're seeing on all three sides is that it's just a lowered total transactional volume. And for those who think this could be maybe a minor issue or not to a large material sum, I'll give you an example. Avionics Source has a partner shop in the country that has, as an example, 10 confirmed paid deposit for a slide-in replacement product. And these are customers that are willing and wanting buyers. They're not potential. They have hard money on the line waiting for their product. At the same time, Avionics Source will have 10 customers on a waiting list, also with paid deposits. When we see those 20 transactions fall through, meaning 10 new avionics boxes are not shipped to the new dealer and 10 are not removed to go to the wholesale market, in the dollars we're talking, that could lead to $300,000 to $350,000 in lost economic activity. And ultimately, the customer doesn't win, the shop doesn't win, and resellers like Avionics Source don't win either. So
you see it getting better anytime soon?
What I'm hearing from industry peers, partners, is that the equipment is absolutely trickling out. We are seeing a higher volume capacity going through the network. That said, unfortunately for potential buyers that are hoping to call their local dealer and get in the next month or two, a lot of the equipment I'm hearing is already spoken for. And here we are in July, and this equipment is for orders placed in March, April, May, June. So we're not beating this lag at all. And we're still seeing products that are in the September, October timeframe. And one unnamed manufacturer has gone on record to state, attention all dealers, these products are going to be out of stock because we cannot buy the components to build this at any price. It's not just elevated to pass it along to the dealers or customers. There's just no components.
If you're searching to use the avionics market, there's probably going to be a shortage of what you're looking for. So, you might expect that for current production equipment. First thing that comes to my mind is a Garmin GTN 750, probably one of the most popular pieces of equipment for a new retrofit these days. So yeah. Am I right that you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a used GTN 750 on the used market for a price that you may be willing to pay for it? But the other question is, what is happening to some of these legacy products? Is it safe to assume that because buyers aren't able to get their hands on the latest and greatest equipment in the time frame that they're looking for, are they putting off those newer upgrades and now sourcing older equipment simply because they can't get their hands on newer stuff? Is that an accurate read or not really?
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. But from the deals that I've seen, specifically on the 750, much like we previously talked, we had used 750s that were absolutely transacting for more than new GTN 750s MSRP'd for because they didn't exist. So that kind of answers your second question. Guys, we're absolutely buying legacy products to get the job done and get it moving. In fact, I had a friend who's a Mooney aircraft owner, and while completing this entire panel upgrade, they had to go acquire a second-hand GTN to complete the project and deliver the airplane to get it back out of there. Hangar space was running short, and they ended up buying and reselling the 750 and only holding it for 45 days while they waited out their XI delivery. And that absolutely too is also happening. So if we were to really summarize this conversation, it's a very challenging crossroads right now for consumers, both new and used. And so if you see something you like at a fair price, it's best to buy it up, because we don't see anything changing soon to completely flood the used market with products. Now, to go specifically answering your question on kind of the real legacy products, the silver, gold crown, we're really seeing consumers that are very wise are starting to really avoid the products where there is no more OEM factory support, because anything goes wrong, these products are paperweights. Most notably, recently, Garmin announced early April, they discontinued the Garmin GMA 340 flat rate repair. And as an industry insider, I take that as they are either consuming the parts for other products, they've run short quicker and they can't, refill their demand. But we're talking a product that is installed in the field to the tune of probably, I'm sure they could correct me, but 10 to 20,000 panels are out there, and a product that was previously flat rate repaired. So whether it be a backlight failure, a knob bent, comm clarity, whatever it may be, you could send that to the factory for $250 and they will make it like new. It'll have a short warranty and you're happy. That no longer exists. And I have hundreds of customers previously that I took care of that have these products that, if anything goes wrong, their only option, unless they upgrade to something, in the 2 to 3 times the cost, are going to have to just buy another Garmin GMA 340 and keep replicating that as things fail. And so we're definitely walking this tightrope between really tight supply of new products, really tight supply of used, and of the used products, a myriad of them are gone for factory support in perpetuity. So you have to be a very, I guess I'd say, nimble or cautious buyer, because if you need help, there's no one there for you to answer that call, and that's troubling.
To that end, how about some savvy advice for shopping the used market?
Yeah, so first and foremost, as I've always said, you want to buy it from a reputable source, and that is, known wholesalers or resellers that they've been around the industry. They might retain their own dealerships. These are not fly-by-night operations. The next best is going to be working directly with 145 authorized repair stations that also are new dealers. They can do the testing themselves. The biggest element is, if you can buy something that's tested and it's been tagged and has a warranty, jump all over it. I really would caution buyers in this market to really give pause to anything that has lost factory support. And if you're unsure of that, reach out to industry companies, ask the seller themselves. Your average buyer just shopping eBay for a nice, affordable 6-place intercom might not understand the black cloud that looms over that purchase. And ultimately, I can support and I can appreciate Garmin supporting this product for years after its initial production. And I ultimately believe they would have happily supported this because of the magnitude of volume in the field. They're just hard pressed on parts, and this is where it goes. So that's kind of my thought on that, is make sure you're buying something that has a tag, it has a warranty, it has factory support at a variety of these manufacturers, and that will allow you to feel very confident that you're getting what you paid for and you can fly with it happily for a long time to come.
Another aspect of this is knowing what the factory flat rate repair is. There are some buyers that end up paying top dollar for used equipment, only to find that it has to go back to the factory for a flat rate repair. And now they're really into this piece of equipment for a lot of money. So
yeah,
would you agree that, you need to weigh the price of a trip to the factory when you're sourcing?
Yeah, I think a lot of the testing and tagging from reputable, facilities can kind of ease your mind of that, because they're putting their repair station on the 8130, things of that nature. If it
Well,
is
I'm talking in the sense of there's only so much that a bench tech can do with some of this
yeah,
later
I agree. I
equipment,
agree.
from a repair standpoint. So I think that might be something to think about, particularly
Yeah,
with later model equipment.
yeah, I would say the best thing to do for a customer that has, let's say, a shop that's willing to install it, and the consumer finds it themselves, it is definitely worthy of a phone call to say, I'm looking at buying this. Is this supported? What is my max liability here if things go sideways? Knowing the numbers and knowing the liability is really important. And sometimes I see customers that approach Avionics Source that kind of are sitting there with their hands up going, I bought this, I should have done more research, and I need help. And we're able to step in and help people get flat rate repairs, do bench test and tagging, find out what's going on, and provide some insight. Not everyone has that trusted source, and I would encourage people to reach out to their local dealerships and avionics shops and kind of go from there. If you look at this chain top to bottom, you have the newest products have very little capability to be touched or repaired in the field. Those automatically go back to the factory. There's nothing you can do. Then on the low end of this totem pole, you have products that have no support. And so it is this tough middle ground as things get newer and evolved. These repair stations that have dealer and factory training, they don't even have the equipment or the maintenance manuals to do anything. The electronics are just too modern. Salvage purchases can be made, but I think that needs to be more on the airframe. I'm talking ailerons, I'm talking maybe engines, whatever it may be. But electronics, there's so much unknown. There are manufacturers, and this has been stated publicly on forums and further, that if a box is in any FAA documented crash, it's immediately red tagged. So as someone who has seen customers who have bought equipment and sent it into our facility to help get bench tested, I mean, short of having blood on the display, we have seen stuff absolutely decimated, circuit boards that have been snapped, dirt, moisture inside the casing, bent chassis, just stuff that is really, you need to, relate it to, are you willing to go buy a car that has been in an accident and you can see the bent frame in front of you? Because there are so many hidden elements to these electronics. It's just not worth the risk. I do agree that there have been at times super good quality equipment on incidents that are maybe a gear up landing. But again, even if the box works and it passes the bench test, the manufacturer could surprise you down the road and say, oh no, we're not going to be touching that because of this. And you now have a multiple $1,000 box that has been rendered useless and you won't be able to resell it. So I would say that can be a category that can be looked into, but it really should be at the bottom of your list.
Because we've heard from buyers that have gotten stung with no factory support. One of them is Avidyne. We could call it out because we approached Avidyne and they were straight with us. They basically said, because this box was in a wreck, we've got no way of telling what hidden damage may lie deep in these circuit boards, and we may not be able to support it. So
yeah, I think I can see it from both sides. Like I said, I've seen light incidents and I've seen stuff that's very heavy. I'm talking, an Avidyne DFC90 autopilot that was out of a Cirrus that had a chute pole. I mean, we're talking serious incidents. I can see how they can defend that position, and it does, bring on a lot of liability. Yeah, so it is a known public policy that Garmin, for example, they will not repair anything that has any notable moisture. And I bring that up because with corrosion on boxes like this, I have personally seen boxes that you can't see any corrosion on the connectors, and you open a unit up and it's visibly moist, whether it has come from a humid climate. I have been stumped myself, seeing hundreds and hundreds of trade-ins. If I put two in front of you and one we shut and was full of water and one without, you wouldn't tell the difference. And that's the hard thing. I would highlight that it's extremely rare. I mean, probably less than 1% of all boxes, or a 0.5%. But anything can happen, and that's some of the stuff you run against. And it's just not worth it. You know, if you do get something from a salvage and you have a bent connector, and you know, it could present some issues long term that might stump you and the avionics installer. And only once they find out it's been in a wreck, they go, "Oh shoot, I wish I would have known." You know, an autopilot is completely something that should be bought brand new, installed at a 145 repair station under an STC. You do not want to be doing anything used with an A&P, you know, trying to find an old, outdated, you know, publicly hosted PDF install manual. It's just too serious of a category to mess around in. We have this really long in the tooth, archaic business model between OEMs and their dealership network. And the problem that is that the OEM is removed once or twice from the actual users themselves. And we have an aging population of repair station owners, and I'm not seeing the technicians of tomorrow being able to take over these shops in a multitude, you know, across the board. And so what I foresee happening, and what I think will need to happen, is these OEMs taking a much more direct to consumer approach. And that is products that are plug and play for existing functionality in the cockpit for ease of use swaps. And ultimately, I think we are going to need to see a huge tilt shift. And I think this is kind of, maybe it's a big statement, but I do think the 145 repair stations of today are going to have to be phased out, and you will have to see qualified dealer and factory trained technicians, whether they're A&P based, whether they're IAs, they have electronics experience, being able to build mobile capability and install in hyper local markets at the aircraft, in the customer's hangar. And that's just where it's going to have to go for this industry to go to the next level long term.
Thanks for your input. And you've been watching Aviation Consumers coverage with Chase Larabee, founder of Avionics Source.